I believe there is no transformation without courageous leader. And I like to say that, or to think maybe, that my work does help to contribute to make this place a better world. I'm engaging in several movements around the world, being part of the 100 Davos Women or chair of several organizations around the world. I lead with heads and hearts. This is how I am. This is, I believe, where I can really harness the power of people around me also. And when you spark change, this is the critical element. The rest doesn't really matter.
What is up, Impact Heroes? Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Rick Ornelas. Thank you for spending some time with us today, because we know time's a valuable resource and we're going to make it worth your while. I appreciate each and every one of you, not just for listening, but for who you are. I know you're sparking change to make the world a better place every day, and I am humbled and grateful for your efforts. It takes all of us doing our part to spread positive change, and that's what this show is all about. Motivating you with stories of struggle, courage, and hope to empower you to make a difference in your life and the lives of others.
In case you missed it,
once people start giving back and they start getting involved with something, even just a baby step, you start to feel that you are being rewarded so much more than what you're giving to someone else. I feel like sometimes it's just almost selfish because it feels so good. It makes me feel good to be a part of that. And it makes me feel good to see other people feeling that. And you see new volunteers. It takes one step to get involved somewhere, and you'll feel what difference you make. And imagine.
Available everywhere you listen to your podcasts.
Back Impact Heroes. Today we have the pleasure of speaking to our latest iSpark Change social impact hero, and she is someone you are going to want to meet indeed. Our guest today is at the heart of the leadership movement as a catalyst of change and positive impact. She's an enthusiastic leader who is overcoming obstacles to create a better future. That's right up my alley. She's an author and keynote speaker who wants courageous leaders to shift purpose into practice. And as a former Consumer Goods Forum co-chair, she was nominated to be one of the top 25 doers and shakers in demonstrating how the industry can become a purpose-driven actor. She has a 25-year track record and expertise in transforming corporations for positive impact to drive positive change. iSpark Change isn't that old, but we're working on it. She is a steward for the Be for Good Leaders Movement, co-founder of the board member program of Change Now, a chairwoman of the advisory board of the Value Balancing Alliance, and co-founder of Generation Glasgow. Wow, that's quite a bit. She's just an all-around great human being who builds coalitions and harnesses the power of people. Please welcome the resilient, insightful, and impactful founder and CEO of Goodness & Company, Isabelle Grosmaitre. Isabelle, welcome to the iSpark Change podcast. How are you doing today?
Very good. Thank you so much, Rick, for welcoming me in this podcast. I love the name of your podcast, as you know. So I'm very eager to start this conversation together.
Yes. So was I. I mean, we're having fun off air. And so I thought we better hit record before we miss any of the good stuff. So I do have to start, Isabelle, where we start every podcast, because we see you as someone who is spreading positive change in the world, someone whose actions have a positive impact on humanity, and someone that, by our definition, we call a social impact hero. So we consider you a hero. The question is, do you consider yourself a hero?
That's too big of a question for me. And if I may say, I would not consider myself as a hero. No, I think it's too big for me. But reflecting on your question, I believe that a hero in that space is a purpose-led leader. So yes, I'm a purpose-led leader. A leader who is serving a cause that it's much bigger than him or herself. That is the case. A hero is also someone bold, courageous, trying to move the needle every single day. Yep. Yes, that's me. So I believe also there is no transformation without courageous leader. And I like to say that, or to think maybe, that my work does help to contribute to make this place a better world. So in that sense, I'm very eager and honored to be part of this podcast for Social Impact Hero.
Okay. And then I will, so I'll answer for you and say, yes, by everything you shared, that you are a hero, even if you don't want to acknowledge. It's funny, Isabelle, because I'd say probably 70% of guests that I have, and we're at show 150 or 148 or something like that, they don't like, just like yourself, they don't want to call themselves a hero because it has some movie, comic book sense of the word. And for our definition, it is really all the things that you said, that you shared, that you honor your purpose, you are driving positive change, you are bold and courageous. I mean, the things that you've described. So we'll say yes. We'll say yes for our purposes.
That's a huge gift for me today. Thank you.
Oh, you're so very welcome. So very welcome. So I have to ask, because obviously you didn't wake up yesterday doing this work. So how did you get on this heroic journey of doing the work that you're doing and making an impact and, positively helping leaders to drive change?
Well, I must say that I've always wanted to contribute to better futures. And my friends would even tell you to change the world. I have a lot of ambition for the world, I must say. And I'm also conscious about the challenges that we are facing. So why so? I don't know. It's part of my DNA. It has always been since I was a kid, maybe because I come from a family of scientists, and science is about progress. So that's probably it. And also, I think that there are several ways to contribute and to be a social impact hero. On my side and on my journey, I've always believed in action. I'm a woman of action. That's who I am. And I believe that the world needs dreamers and the world needs doers, but above all, the world needs dreamers who do. And I'm one of them. And I've always chosen business because I believe in business as a force for good. There are plenty ways to contribute, but business for me is the driving force of innovation, of action. And therefore, I've always done that. So I've started in family-owned business. And always choosing company that we're doing good to society, good to the world. That's also an area. So there are many different activities in the world, but always working around the areas of health of people and health of planets. So I did that for several years. So driving business, and I believe in alignment of people, you and me, but also alignment of companies. Now the wording is purpose, activities, and the way you engage your people, but it's the same. So if you have an alignment, then you thrive, right, in the world every day. So it's the same for companies. When they thrive, when they perform, when they have a tremendous impact, is when they are driven by a purpose bigger than them and aligning the activity and the engagement of people. So I've done that I did that for a couple companies. And then at one point, I think it was 30, 35, I was wondering, do I want to impact hundreds of lives, thousands of lives, millions of lives, billions of lives? And I took to myself and I said, well, yeah, billions of lives. So then I realized I had no other choice than to join a big corporation because of the huge impact in the world. So I decided to join Danone. And I led the transformation of Danone for 9 years, from strategy to implementation on One Planet, One Health. And this was also to demonstrate that at global level, you can change the rules of the game. But when I decided, this was the second step of my journey, my professional journey. And the last one is that 3 years ago, I decided to build Goodness & Co., which is a new kind of change management consultancy. And why did I do that? Because I realized, it was in 2019 actually, that something happened. I don't know about you, if you felt that way, being, in this field and breathing this air every single day, 2019 was a big shift for me. So many things were happening. I was overwhelmed by emotions, positive and also scary ones, because, there was the latest report, from the UN about what is happening, tremendous challenges. I have 5 kids at home, so I'm conscious about what does it take to build a better world for the next generation. But also there was the business roundtable in the US, you remember? Those CEOs signing from a shareholder to stakeholder economy. There was the first strikes from Greta Thunberg, saying, saying, oh, it's enough. We need to change the rules of the system. At Danone, we were moving the needle at global level. But, in every transformation, it was getting more tense. At the beginning, people are very happy to embrace the purpose that is bigger than them, then to, contribute to things that are amazing. But at one point, you need to be part of the system.
Yeah.
And there was
when it starts to get hard, when it starts to get difficult.
It was starting to get harder. And at the same time, I was nominated by my peer, as you mentioned, at the CGF board. And I was reporting to a board of 58 CEOs of big companies. And I was struck the first time I went about how few leaders were really engaged in this journey. And, with leadership comes responsibility. So you expect leaders from those big multinational to be accountable of driving, this transformation for positive change. And I must say that the first time I went there, I was quite disappointed to see that there were not so many. But, as the time passes until 2019, at this board meeting, I saw the boardroom shifted, where conscious leaders were becoming a majority. And the question was not anymore about the why, but the question was becoming, how do we make it happen? And I don't think there is a magic wand, but there are ways to do it, to drive the change at the core of the operating model. So this is when I decided to build Goodness & Co. to serve the courageous leaders of the world to shift purpose into practice. So this is long story short, but I've always done that all my life in different playgrounds. But, I have the experience around that.
So there's a few things that I want to unpack there. One, go back to the beginning and then something towards the end of what you were saying. But at the beginning of when you were answering, Isabelle, you said you had worked in the family business. So was first, what type of business? And then was purpose an important part of your business? You said you worked with companies that were doing good and, driving change and everything. But where does that, I know you said you've always had it in you, right? To want to, make things better and take action, which I agree with that a leader has to take action because, words are futile if you don't act. So what was the motivating factor for that action? What was the business and what role did you play to where, purpose was important?
So the first company that I chose was called Boiron so it's the world leader of homeopathic medicine. And they had a huge purpose. And actually, I was out of college and I had to choose between 2 companies. One was, I won't say the name, but a global data and tech company. When I met this leader, he was telling me, okay, in 2 years, you will be there. In 3 years, you will be there. In 4 years, you will be there, etc. But never at one point, he talked about the purpose of the company, the reason why they exist beyond, profit or beyond their activities. He was more about a career proposal, whereas Boron was, I'm exaggerating when I say they want to change the world, but it's a world leader. Nevertheless, the biggest market is France, and they were doing less than 1.5% of the OTC market, over-the-counter market, which is basically not much. And they wanted, their purpose was to bring homeopathy to the world, saying that every single healthcare practitioner in the world could integrate homeopathic medicine in their practice in order to help people, realign themselves, take care of themselves, and, to avoid medicine when not needed, other type of medicine, traditional medicine.
Yeah. So, definitely purpose-driven, right? Definitely, world-changing types of things.
Yes.
And then I guess that's where you say that it was always a part of you. Was that an easy decision to go with them over the other company that was thinking, just about profit? And
very easy.
Yeah. So okay, so in the second part of what you were saying, you were talking about shift in 2019 and big change. So when you first encountered a lot of those leaders where you were disappointed, they weren't really engaged. What I felt is that, and even up through probably post-COVID, was that a lot of leaders, global leaders, they were saying what they needed to say because they felt it would be good for marketing or advertising or their brand image. And they were doing, certain initiatives to check a box and, to say, oh, we're on board with, with XYZ, right? DEI or whatever it is. We're on board with these things and we want to change the world. And then so many of them during the pandemic were forced to make it about people and planet and, not about profits. And that's where I saw an even bigger shift. So you said that it was prior to COVID. So what do you think drove that change, that mental shift or that mentality change for a lot of global leaders?
I think that there are various things. So one is that I had the chance, and I do have the chance every day to work with the pioneers. I've always loved that, serving. That's really what I love to do, is serving the courageous leaders of the world. So the ones that are pioneers. And in this boardroom, there are pioneers, or there were pioneers, like Paul Polman from Unilever. The first one was a sustainable living plan. Emmanuel Faber with One Planet, One Health. Indra Nooyi from PepsiCo. There were a few of them. And when you are a pioneer, you scare others away at the beginning, So I think that those leaders needed to demonstrate that it was possible for the others. So that's one. And I think that there are multiple things. It's not just one. When you're not a pioneer, so you don't have this embodied in you, since your youth or every single day, there are elements in your life. So a lot of times, and I'm sorry to say so, but it's okay, those leaders are quite experienced. So they have older kids, and therefore those kids are challenging them, at the dinner table or at lunchtime on Sunday. So this is part of what really makes the CEOs move, really. Yeah. I think the young generation challenging always, what is best for the world. Second is that I think that at this moment in 2019, those big corporations were challenged by meaningful brands, brands that were more purpose-led or more mission-native, that were, challenging the consumers on their side with market share. There was also a point about the talent. Around the world, we can say that 7 out of 10 people are looking for companies that are doing good, that are aligned with their values. Doesn't mean that they are ready to be paid less, but they are at least looking for companies that are aligned with their values. So that's a critical element. And also at that time, regulations started to pop up, meaning that it was going to come up, and investors were starting to ask more and more questions, the financial analysts, about the way they were running the sustainability activities within their company. So, it was kind of a lot of things. And in this boardroom, I must say that a lot of times when you have to take courageous decision, of course, they are the front runners, the ones that are, the pioneers. But how the second half is moving is the collective. I don't know if you know the theory of change. You need 10% of the people to make the shift happen. So the pioneers, they're not 10%, they're less. But the rest, if you have to, people starting to shift, then there is this collective that is shifting at the same time. Physically, you could see that in the room. So I think it's also about, and it's not so easy. So we need one another. And therefore, when you see that the other next to you, your peer, is moving forward, then you are more ready to move. So.
Yeah, so it is very interesting. you talk about the collective and a lot of external variables that played a role in motivating them to change, right? And I saw that when I did a lot of research and with younger generations, Gen Z, millennials, and their impact in the marketplace and everything when I started iSpark Change. And you're right, whereas my generation, we embraced that change and that purpose and making a difference far later in life. Gen Z, for example, it's from almost like from day one, right? When they're a teenager, oh yeah, I want to change the world, and they believe they can. And I think so much of that is because of the global connectivity. So I can appreciate, the impact that they've had, whether through the workplace or whether it's through family members, things like that. So do you feel, Isabelle, that, okay, yes, obviously there's the pioneers that make change, and then there's, kind of that second group that, they feel the pressure, the external pressures, and then they decide to jump on the bandwagon. Do you feel that once they joined, the change or the movement, if you will, do you feel that they started to embrace it, that came over time? Because again, like I talked about it being forced as a result of COVID, do you think that they've started to embrace it, and now, more recently that it's seen as value to them and their organizations and the impact? Or do you think there's some still fight it?
I think it's a journey. So I think it's a journey. I think that conscious leaders are becoming a movement, not a niche, for sure. But it is not so easy for them. So, being a leader today, being a CEO is not so easy. Managing the global situation, economic crisis, the uncertainty, the inflation is a challenge. Let's put it this way. I mean, I think we need to be aware of that. So, and I think also that there is no magic wand, it's not like reinventing business model is not happening overnight. We are, for instance, doing a lot of work with the board of directors, and it's quite an interesting one. I was this morning was a lady that sits on 5 boards, amazing leadership board, and the reality is that most of the people that are sitting in the boards, they are experienced people, because it requires to drive the change. It's not so easy, it's complex, so they are experienced. The reality is that how many business models have been reinventing with positive impact at the heart, 10, 20 years ago? Not so many. It's emerging. So they don't have the experience. They don't understand. So how can they best serve the transformation of the company when they don't have any experience? It's a challenge. Yeah. So, and they're conscious, they're willing. Regulation is moving into this direction. So they learn. So I think there is no magic wand, but there are ways to succeed, like training, like the composition of the board, making sure that you have people that are more experienced in this area versus others, like the gender diversity. It's about composition. Bringing different lens from around the table, from representing also all your stakeholders. That's new. All these elements. It's also about being willing to spend more time on this. It cannot be reviewed like the regular elements. It's also about being rigorous in the consistency. It's not about checking the box once a year on the sustainability strategy. No, it is about how much the sustainability or the positive impact is at the heart of your operating model. So therefore, every time you take a decision of an external growth, of an M&A, how much do you look at this? Yeah. If you look at the performance of a company, how much do you look at this? If you look at the incentive of the leadership team, how much do you embrace this part? It's how much is it integrated? And it's all about also asking the right question. It's okay not to have all the answers, but how much, the planetary boundaries will have an impact on your business, because the board is here to build sustainable business, in the long term. versus the executive team who is focusing on the short-term delivery.
Yeah.
So it's all this type of thing. So to answer your point, I don't believe that it's there is no waha moment. I think that conscious leaders are becoming a movement. It's a learning journey, and it sure does require courage to lead this change. So courage for me is the fortitude, the strength of heart that manifests in a challenging situation that requires a choice. So how, if I may say, it's more about how courageous you are to take the relevant decisions in challenging moments.
Yeah, and there's so many external pressures, right? There's so many external pressures, the financial pressures, the pressures from the board, stockholders, shareholders, all those things that's where it can be difficult to be courageous. And that's where the pioneers, as you phrase them, I mean, part of my work is doing behavioral analytics. And so I look at those type of individuals, like an Indira Nooyi, and say, okay, well, they are the type of visionary that is going to, as I think it's Steve Jobs that said, the ones that believe they're crazy enough to change the world are the ones who do. And so, I know I have that mentality. It seems like you have that mentality as well. So it's finding those individuals that can lead the cause, that can be the champion, and then
the change.
Yes, and then can show the results, right? I mean, when she made those changes at Pepsi, they grew. I forget the percentage, but they started huge growth after making those changes. And so when others see that type of growth, then the proof is in the pudding, as they say. To use an American slang example, because that's where then all the financial pressures play, and they can say, okay, well, it's going to happen.
And that's a critical point. And this is something that this is our only compass, if I may say, is that we believe there is a way to align, as we were discussing, but it's also a way to reconcile economic performance and social progress. This is the only thing we look at, basically.
Yeah. And obviously that's super important for all of these executives. So a few other questions that come to mind. You talk about, purpose and the people that you're working with and everything. What would you define as your current purpose, at the moment?
My purpose is to serve the courageous leaders of the world to reinvent their model for better futures.
Well stated. And that's great. I think you're doing exactly that. And I can tell Isabelle that you have clarity in that purpose. And oftentimes I ask that question and the answers I get are kind of vague, and people don't always have that figured out. And I think when you get that alignment of that purpose with your passion and where it aligns with the work that you do, then that's where you can make a significant impact and make change as you are. Yeah. Well, okay. So one thing we talk about, as we come towards the end here, a few important questions that I want to ask, because one thing I talk about on the show are spark moments. And spark moments, those are moments in life where our actions or the actions of another have that ripple effect that goes far beyond the initial act. And you may not always see it right away, but down the road, that's why this happened, or here's the causality of that action. So share an example of a spark moment in your life where either someone else impacted you that had an effect on your journey, or where you impacted someone else or an organization and you've seen the effect in their journey.
I think there is not one moment. That's a challenge.
There's probably many. There's many when you start looking at it, but what would be one that would stand out that had a positive impact?
Well, I told you about this very important moment that I remember, this boardroom in November 2019. This had a huge effect on me because I've always had an amazing admiration, I must say, for entrepreneurs, but I never dared before. And that day I realized that these conscious leaders were becoming a movement, not a niche, that I would go for it. So this had a huge key, impact on my decision.
Yeah, because had you not been there, who knows if you would be where you are today?
No, I would not be. I'm sure I would not be.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd be working in some organization, obviously driving, change in that organization and having an impact.
Exactly. Yeah. And I had many moments like, it's about when you try to spark change around you, it's about this a moment where you need to take a courageous decision, if I may say, to start from scratch, to go for it and think you can have a bigger impact by making this choice.
Yeah.
That's a moment of, if I may say, courageous decision.
Yeah.
There are moments when you spark change. It's also important to, I think that it depends also on the age or your experience, but moments where you feel fully trusted, when you can really start to strive because you are conscious about the change that you're making in people's life or people or organization, if I may say.
Yeah.
So I had also this type of moment. Thanks also very much to leaders that have trusted me, embracing that change much beyond what I was supposed to do. So that's key. It's about, daring to be the change that you want to see in the world. I mean, I was having a tea and this is written in the
it says in the cup, the Gandhi quote. Yeah, the quote from Gandhi.
But that's so much, it's about, if you want to drive the change around you, it's also very important to apply it for yourself and, go for it. And then when I was thinking about sparking change is also very much about being authentic, harnessing the power of people around you. Yeah. And I was thinking, have I always been this way? I think that people around me, friends would say that I've always been like that, very much overwhelmed by emotion all the time. When I'm sad, I'm very sad. When I'm happy, I'm very happy. So it's a challenge to deal with that. Yeah. And I must say that I had a tipping point in my professional life when I was very young. I was 23, I think. I had a coach that did my first 360. So as a coach, you know what is a 360, right? You ask people around yourself what they feel is your strengths and what's a bad day for you and what they think about you. And I was really shocked to say that people would say that, I was at that time already somebody that makes things happen, that I was a visionary leader, but I was kind of tough. And I felt sad by this, and it's really hurt me, I would say. Oh, so, because I felt that there was a gap between what people would perceived me as and who I was. So I was 23, but that day I decided to just be myself, not to fake it, but just to be yourself. And I must say that's the way I run my company, the way I deal with people around me, the way I'm engaging in several movements around the world, being part of the 100 Davos Women or chair of several organizations around the world. I lead with heads and hearts. This is how I am. Mm-hmm. This is, I believe, where I can really harness the power of people around me also. And when you spark change, this is the critical element. The rest doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and I can say I feel that you've been completely authentic in your sharing today. So thank you very much for sharing those spark moments, and thank you for being yourself. So before we get to our final question here, where can our audience learn more about your work, connect with you, see everything you're doing?
So, well, you know what? I just published a new book called Business as a Force for Good, How Courageous Leaders Shift Purpose into Practice, which is really, I would say, the enthusiastic testimony that we are entering a new era when it comes to governance and leadership, but also that it is possible to reconcile, performance with social progress. So it's all about my experience, the people that of course, it's all about people, you will see, people people are quite surprised that it's a business book, but with a lot of authentic relationships, people. It's not about organization. It's about people in the organization. You know, organization don't drive the change. It's people that drive change. And this is key to remember ourselves. So a book is a way to learn more about what we do, what I do. And of course, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn as an easy way to learn more about it.
Well, we will make sure that we share the links to your book and all of your information there in the notes, so everyone can grab themselves a copy. I haven't had the chance to read it. I will, because that's something I'm very interested in. I love what you said, Isabelle, about that it's about the people, because it always is. It always is. You know, that's what it comes down to all the time. Yeah. There's no success in an organization without the people, and that's why, you know, I work on people all day long and the people that I work with as well.
This is the most precious activity in the world, you know? Yeah, completely. Well, final question here that we ask all our guests on the iSpark Change podcast, Isabelle, because our goal at iSpark Change is to positively impact, similar to yours, is to positively impact 1 billion people within 5 years of launching our upcoming social impact social media platform. Now, we know we can't. Yes, thank you. We know we can't do it alone. We know we need the help of impactful leaders like yourself to help show others the way, because a lot of people feel, as I once did, that they're too small to make a difference. So we value your thoughts and opinions as a social impact hero. So I want you to peer into the future, peer into our crystal ball, and tell us, what can the world become if everyone starts believing that they can impact the future? Oh, first, I think that it would become a tremendous, amazing joy, really, because I think that in sparking change and driving better futures, it brings so much joy, because it's about bringing people together, as we were discussing. It's about bringing people together for a cause that is much bigger than them, that brings so much joy, and also joy because you feel that your legacy towards the future generation is there, and that you will be able in 10 years from now to look at your kids in the eyes and say that you have done every single thing at a time that it did matter.
Yeah, that's a beautiful answer, because it's really all about, you know, I believe, leaving the world better than we found it, right? Just like if it goes, we leave it better than you found it. It's as simple as that, just on a global scale. So thank you very much for answering, and thank you for taking time to share your heart and wisdom with our audience today, Isabelle. You came in and you over-delivered, as I expected when we were talking off air. Your desire to be impactful is evident. You're filled with passion, determination, and you lead with an authentic heart, which tells me you're going to continue to have success in all facets of life. And this is only the beginning of your time as a courageous social impact hero.
Thank you so much. I feel so grateful to you, and I feel blessed being considered a social impact hero. I will remember it for a long, long time. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Impact Heroes, it's our stories that connect us all, and we love hearing Isabelle's today. Isabelle Grosmaitre, you're not only an inspiring and amazing human being, you truly are an iSpark Change social impact hero. We'll see you all next time.
Do you want Rick to speak at your event? Here's what others have to say.
Did not know his story, and it was so inspirational, and his presence on stage, his authenticity was just incredible.
Performance made me feel some type of way. My name is Craig Siegel.
If you're looking for a speaker for your next event, hire Rick. I promise you this, you will not be disappointed.
Visit rickornelis.com to book him today.
Remember, Impact Heroes, every positive action can be a spark moment that has a ripple effect that spreads far beyond the initial act. So go out there and spark change. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this episode, then please smash that 5-star rating on iTunes or Spotify and leave a review. We value your comments and we want to hear from you in the community. Thank you for listening. God bless you, and we'll see you next week on the iSpark Change podcast.